more can change in 1 week. Believe the hype, the train's leaving tonight. Hit the throttle, we heading straight to Chicago. It's only getting better, this is our future endeavor. I can't wait to see the fight between Pac, Kenny, Omega. It's bound to be killer, the winner have to consider. It will all be over quicker, deliver the beat trigger. It's picking up, Lucha Bros versus...
It was a DDT Daniels, collectively known as SoCal Uncensored, or SCU. You are listening to the All Elite Podcast, and it is the worst podcast I've ever been on. See you later.
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. I am back here with our co-host, anime nerd, pro wrestling enthusiast, Big Match AJ. AJ, how are things going?
Things are going good. I went to Disney World over the weekend, so I have no complaints.
That's good to hear. Me and AJ were actually just talking about the fact that he still hasn't sent me my Joey Janela shirt that he promised me so long ago.
Slander.
And I figure if I put him on blast on the podcast, maybe he'll just send it at some point. But the reason we got to the topic was because I told him I was going to get him a Joey Janela beanie for Christmas. Because if you guys haven't noticed, our boy AJ has a new gimmick every week wearing that nice beanie, the Beanie Man as we call him going into the show. But
the Beanie Man.
Outside of that discussion, AJ, we weren't really talking much about AEW, but there's a bunch of AEW news that happened this week. One of the more interesting things that popped up on my timeline, at least today, was the situation with Big Cass. We had talked about it quite a few weeks ago, where Big Cass and Joey Janela had a big situation go down. And like, can you touch on that subject, just the initial situation? Because I don't remember it entirely what happened. I know that Joey referenced it in an interview and everything, but I don't remember the whole initial situation.
Well, I didn't know he had beef with Big Cass. I thought it was all about Enzo Amore, and then it kind of just snowballed into this big, I don't know, situation where
I know the biggest situation was there was a match where he and Big Cass were both scheduled to wrestle, I think, at NEW.
That's right.
And Big Cass kind of went off on Joey in the backstage area. Joey had sort of didn't really know how to react to it. It comes out in the interview that it was pretty much all a shoot. The interesting thing about this is basically Big Cass comes back onto social media and just ats Joey Janela and says if he says anything else about him, he's going to kill him. And people obviously had to react to this like, what in the hell are you saying? Because when Joey mentioned it in the interview and stuff with the Young Bucks, he had basically said like, this was legit. Big Cass was going crazy. I felt bad for the guy, like, because he had to sit and talk with the cops, and there's like pictures of him talking with the cops and everything. So there was just so much behind that. So for Big Cass to just come out like this, and then after about an hour, he deletes the tweet, comes back, doubles back, and he's like, it's a work, you idiots. And apparently the fans are just supposed to take that as, like, whatever and let it go. But Joey Janela responds to this and says that the only one that Big Cass is really working is himself, and then says that he's a moron. He felt bad for him initially, but now he just sees that he's an idiot. This situation was weird. I think Big Cass, the whole situation with him and Enzo and everything within professional wrestling, it's all disappointing, really.
It is disappointing, and it's also, I don't know, pathetic. It's the only word that comes to mind. Right now, Big Cass is just being absolutely pathetic because it's so weird to, one, go on record saying you're going to kill a guy, and then two, say, oh, I was just working the marks, brother.
Yeah, it was a really weird and awkward thing, and it's just weird. It's weird how some people, I don't know why, especially with Janela, it's like they try to work themselves into something with him sometimes. Where it's like, where the spring break effect has a situation with it, I feel like, where they want to get on that big type show. So they think working that type of angle could be something. And I think with the Enzo thing, it might have more so been Janela trying to work that kind of angle. But regardless, either way, it just comes off as strange, especially with Big Cass and everything. So, you there?
Yeah, sorry, it cut out for a moment.
Just a bit of technical difficulties there, but nonetheless, this whole situation with Big Cass is strange. Hopefully Big Cass gets help, and they can just leave this type of thing in the past. The thing that sucks the most about it is I wouldn't mind seeing someone like Big Cass and Enzo in AEW, or do that Ring of Honor run that people wanted to see. I know that Enzo has some pretty jarring allegations against him, but it came out that those were proven false. Based upon that, the way that I can see it as I don't know the situation. It looked all crazy to me to begin with, so I'm not gonna crucify the guy and say he can never come back. I would be interested in a return for either guy. Enzo just because of his mic work and Cass because he's a big dude who can work. So it's unfortunate that these guys cannot seem to just get it together.
Yeah, I don't expect them in AEW. I'm guessing after all this, they just don't have any interest, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it would take a crazy, change of everything for those two. That's not necessarily what I was insinuating. I guess it's just disappointing that they couldn't.
But you know what I mean.
They couldn't really be brought into a company like AEW because you just can't trust them to be, level-headed and everything, so.
I expect Impact at most.
Yeah, and I actually forgot to open the show with some of the bigger news, something that we tend to forget to talk about because in all honesty, AJ and I genuinely don't care that much about the ratings. We care about it, I guess, from a business perspective and comparing them with NXT, and it's a fun thing, but it really isn't something that we are living and dying with AEW on in terms of, who's watching with us. So we don't open every show with it, I guess, as maybe we should, or people might expect us to, as it is a very big topic within the wrestling community. The fact that AJ and I don't really care so much about the official ratings might not resonate with some people. Some people want to know. So that being said, this week AEW did manage to edge out NXT by about 6,000, literally 6,000 viewers in the average number. So, and across the board, I think they were neck and neck in all the demographics, and it's just interesting to see that this wrestling war is something that's not as just a given one-sided either way.
Yeah, I think the only big thing about the ratings is that it's very clear that the Thanksgiving rating was an anomaly at this point, and I don't know. That's really the only thing I'm taking away from it is, it's just status quo. AEW edged them out, but it's not really that big of a win. The biggest thing is, like you said, they were neck and neck in those demos, and before NXT was getting stopped in the demos almost every week, weren't they?
Yeah, and what is interesting to me, or in that they were at least getting beat in the prime demos. But what's interesting to me, I guess, is that NXT was able to sort of maintain this 800,000 viewers, and AEW sort of regained 200. These were new viewers almost, because over the past few weeks, it's been 800,000 to 600,000 either way.
Yeah.
With the exception of a couple weeks ago where they were again pretty neck and neck like they are this week. But before that, it was an average on one side or the other that was pretty heavily skewed by almost 200,000. So it's almost as if NXT has been able to maintain some of that audience from Raw and SmackDown while AEW's audience is still there. I think it'll be something worth seeing this week because I don't think that the Dynamite card is as stacked as it was last week. They're obviously not going up against, and I think that was, you're saying it's an anomaly. I think the biggest thing is that it's going to be a trend for either show. Following a big pay-per-view, the other one's going to have that uptick of more viewers. Following AEW's pay-per-view, they were hitting 900, almost 1 million again, sort of pulling those viewers away from NXT, those swing viewers who are willing to go to a different show every week. I think each show has established that they have about 600,000 loyal, and then 200,000 that are willing to swing either way.
Yeah, I think, wasn't there, the only thing I'm thinking about to add to this is, wasn't there a commercial where TNT was going we smashed them in the ratings?
Another thing we didn't really talk about on here, which I guess we should have, because that was a big topic throughout social media as well, is this TNT commercial where they're saying that AEW smashes NXT and this and that. And I think that it's a marketing tactic from a big company like TNT, and they might have seen it as a smart move. I don't see it as a smart move. I think it was really just it didn't work. It looks silly. It's so early. Any wrestling
it's silly,
fan who gets
it's absurd. But I was also not upset by it because that means, again, TNT is happy, and that's all that matters here.
That's fair. It is just worth, I don't know, it could be, unappealing to some fans, this type of, boasting, especially so early in everything. It's tough to see that, and especially coming off a week where they did get dominated so bad. It was rough for any AEW fan to try and like justify it or put any merit behind it, because it just looked so bad and made no sense. But yeah, for TNT and commercials, I guess it's just a marketing tactic to drive in new viewers, which it works. I mean, the thing about it is, the reason it works is because there's at least 1 million viewers of Raw or SmackDown, like per se, that probably don't watch AEW or NXT, but they know the name NXT. So if they see a commercial for AEW and see that it's beating NXT, then it might prompt them to be like, well, what is this? Let me check it out. So I do see that tactic behind it, but otherwise, for fans who already know what both products are, it just looks really shady.
Yeah, it does. It's just kind of, I'm going to use the word again, pathetic, because you're boasting about something when the company is clearly trying to stay away from it, of going, oh, we're winning this week or we're losing this week, because frankly, they don't know what's going to happen every week.
Yeah, exactly. They don't. And, well, the beautiful thing of it was that, like you said, they were able to bounce back. They were able to get those viewers back this week, something that I was a little concerned about. I think we were both a little concerned about that it might not be an anomaly. That might have been, like, not their new average, but that might be the amount of fans who are willing to watch each week, so you're going to have to pull them back. It was nice to see that everything sort of averaged out and came back together. Again, I think it's going to leave something to see how next week's card looks, because last week's card was really good.
Yeah, it's going to be more of an uphill battle with the cards going forward, I think, because you can't, like, just go all out every single week. There has to be kind of, like we talked about, filler episodes. And this week, I think the biggest match we have is the Young Bucks and Santana and Ortiz, right? So
yeah, that'll be a street fight, and we'll kind of go over the whole match card here in a little bit. But yeah, I think it's going to be somewhat of a filler episode, where they realized last week maybe that they needed more of a bounce back episode. I think they could still leave a couple of things to be announced. I think it's interesting to see that there hasn't really been they haven't addressed Kenny versus Pac in any way. The way that Pac made that call for a match a couple weeks ago, and they made a point to retweet it and things like that. I think that will be referenced in some way. We'll either get that match or we'll get Pac attacking someone because he's mad. But I think you're right. There are going to be episodes like this week, and episodes like this week will be more like filler, whereas last week were like really stacked, important cards. One of the more important things of last week was Chris Statlander's win over Hikaru Shida, and then it was interesting that this week we got the official announcement that Chris Statlander and Big Swole both officially signed for AEW. They have official contracts with the company. This is awesome. Statlander has only been wrestling since 2017. She obviously still has a lot to learn, but obviously just has something about her that connects with the fan base, and we could see an interesting upswing for her. And Big Swole as well. She's also one that to really keep an eye on and could have an interesting future in AEW. She definitely has that social media presence. The fan base is on social media for her. I think it can translate to turning fans to be really interested in her, because she is something different.
Yeah, not only, she's also just a really, unlike Statlander, I would say she's a great promo. And I think that's one of her strongest. I just remember they did a whole entire thing out on Shayna, or Shauna, and they were just they were like doing a big promo and a video package, and then Big Swole just murders her in about 30 seconds in an interview on Dark. And she's just that good on the mic. She can just kind of get you hyped for the match and get you behind her. So I don't know, I'm super over on Big Swole, and I think Statlander is probably one of my favorite women in the ring right now, because she's just so naturally good at working.
Yeah, and the one positive to Big Swole, I think, is that she also has that like established record within AEW. She's been with the company essentially from the beginning of TV, I would say, because she was there on All Out and the Casino Battle Royale. Also has done quite a few TV tapings and things like that. So she makes a lot of sense as a signing. Statlander, it feels like a huge signing, or like a really solid signing.
It is.
Especially with that WWE interest, and then they were able to bring her in and put her over in like a really good way, and it's a fresh way of doing something like that, and it's interesting to have seen how everything has gone down and how she's connected so well. And I hope to see like a continued push for her. She's someone that I'm really interested in.
No, absolutely the same.
Yeah, and then speaking of Big Swole, she has actually been confirmed for a match this week, going up against Emi Sakura. That match has been announced for Dynamite. Again, we're going to talk about the whole card here in a minute, but as that being an announcement, what are your thoughts on that card?
It's going to be that match. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic just because Big Swole is really solid in the ring, and Emi Sakura is just such a veteran, and she can work with basically anybody they have on the roster. That I think it's going to be naturally a good matchup. Also, I don't know. I think it's just going to be very technical and very mat-based because given the two wrestlers in it.
Yeah, I think it could be a really interesting one. I think we've got a good chance to see Big Swole maybe get an upset victory here, and sort of the same type of thing where they're trying to get her to join Awesome Kong and Brandy. And a good way to sort of elevate her as well. She might, and what would be cool with her is she could easily be someone who rejects it, goes to attack, and then there's she could still get beaten down because she had already won a match. And if she tries to attack Kong, it looks cool and could build to an interesting match between the two. And I think that would be a really good match.
I would love to see those two wrestle. I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, so we'll have to see where it goes and what it builds to, but I hope that it will be a victory for Swole. Emi has done a good job with her role, and I think that she's still ranked pretty well, so it wouldn't be too bad for her to suffer a loss here, and I think it would do a good job at elevating Swole. I don't think it does much for Sakura to beat Swole here, because that it would sort of establish Swole as more of a person to elevate. Yeah, feeder.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And also, that's really what Emi Sakura's role should be, is being that, not that she's a jobber or a feeder, but that she is older and she's kind of there to put over the younger girls.
Yeah, and we'll work with some of these girls and help all of them just sort of look better, because she's so good. She's one of those people that is so good at what she does that she makes everyone around her look good as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool to see that match on the card, and I hope that one will definitely get a decent amount of time because I think they can both perform well.
Yeah, I think so too. I would love it. I'm not expecting it to be 15 minutes, but I'm hoping it's at least 10.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think 15 would necessarily even be what I would totally want. Not necessarily that neither of them could go that long, but it's still sort of an introductory thing for Swole to even get that much time, I feel like. I think most of her matches that have even gone close to that long have been tag matches. So in this case, if they got 10, that's about perfect. So I think I'm right there with you. And then an announcement we got today, AEW is continuing their tour of the southern area, going to Huntsville, Alabama, and then Austin, Texas on February 5th and the 12th. I thought an interesting note here was that they were just announcing 2 for 1 this week. They generally have been announcing one show per week. At least that's the pattern that I've noticed. It's cool.
I wonder if that's due to ticket sales.
That's what I was sort of thinking as well, is that it might just be more helpful for ticket sales if they're announcing things a lot earlier. It also could help with Christmas tickets, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I didn't even consider that. Yeah. And also these are both great cities for them to go to. Well, I don't know about Huntsville, Alabama, but I know Alabama loves wrestling, and I know Austin, Texas is just a breeding ground for wrestling at this point, or not a breeding ground, but it's a popular city with a lot to offer, and so you'll have a lot of young people to come out just to go see the wrestling.
Well, and the thing about Texas is there's a lot of talented guys who have come out of Texas throughout all the years, but especially within recent memory. So it's cool to see that they're going to Austin, Texas, and Huntsville, Alabama. The main point that I took away from it was kind of like you said, that maybe that ticket sales haven't been horrible, but that it's better to just have more shows announced as early as possible. Right now, that's still only 2 months out, and I know they don't have a pay-per-view announced, which is kind of what they've been building to. From what has been reported, they want to do it in February. The struggle with not announcing it yet is because they don't want to put it up against another big event. Not that Jake Paul, that fight was a big event, but it was a social media event that really took a lot of attention off of AEW. Whereas if they get that weekend secured to themselves, they don't have to compete with UFC, boxing, anything like that. So I think that's the issue we have right now, and I would hope to see that we get that announced, because I want to see them have more, it's been nice, this whole 1 week layout type thing, but I would like to see like almost a 6-month tour lined up now. They've had a little bit of time to get that set in place, and so fans aren't trying to buy tickets this month, save money for whatever they got to do. Like, I mean, you're probably just going to buy tickets for a show in your area, but still buy tickets this month and then go to the show next month, whereas you have a little bit more time to plan or whatever around it.
I mean, that's what I did, so you're spot on, because, like, I don't know, if the show was just dropped on me, I wouldn't have necessarily done it as well, or I wouldn't have necessarily gone or bought the tickets or gone out of my way to, plan with my friends, like, oh, are we going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, absolutely, because also, I think it's noted that AEW is watched a lot by groups of people. And so when you have groups of people, you want groups of people to also be going to your shows. And you kind of have to give a little time to do that. It's like a concert.
Yeah, you have to coordinate that type of thing and everything. So it's cool to see, and I just hope that we get more of these shows announced with an extended time frame before. It is 3 months away, so it's not like they've been doing bad at announcing shows. I like to see more shows announced, and I guess it's the biggest, it's more a self-serving thing, because if they announce a set of 6 months of shows, they should probably be close to where I am by that point. You would think, and I think that would help as well, and I think that it might have been a smart thing to do that before Christmas, like as a thing, get all those tickets on sale like early. Like, I think it's too late to do it now, but if they were able to have made that announcement in November and then put the tickets on sale in December, it could have been a really cool thing.
It definitely would have been good. And I don't know, it's obviously they're not going to do a Christmas gimmick with it, but they are definitely, I feel like it's just a matter of time before they just roll out a bunch of shows, or that's what I would assume, because it just seems like the natural thing to do, like you're saying.
Yeah, there will definitely be no Christmas gimmicks, as AEW will be off the air for the week of Christmas. Worth noting, we will also be off the air for the week of Christmas, so we'll be enjoying the time with our families as the AEW wrestlers. Well, I think that's worth pointing out, and it's worth pointing out that the following week, AEW will essentially go up against no competition. There will be no NXT that week, so I think it'll be cool to see if that big episode that they're pushing can pull in that audience from NXT. It's kind of just like a gimme for that week, but it'll be cool to see if that numbers will cross over that way. If the show's off that week, how they'll pull in that other audience.
Yeah, it'll be a tough episode too, because it's still a holiday episode, right?
Yeah, it's essentially like a New Year's Day or something, like right around that time. Oh yeah, it's literally New Year's Day, so the 1st.
That's going to be tough, but it's New Year's Day. It's not New Year's Eve, but still, it's going to be different, I think. Because, like, I don't know if the numbers should be taken too close to the heart, maybe it's not going to matter as much, but it definitely should get a bump for sure.
Yeah, like and I think that's the one point, is that they probably, if anything, it might just average out, but there's always that opportunity to pull that audience in. I was kind of surprised, but not really surprised, with Christmas Day being that Wednesday, that NXT wasn't going to try and take that Christmas Day spot and get any viewers that they could from AEW. Instead, we're getting it sort of the reverse way, where instead on New Year's, we're getting that New Year's episode of AEW. So that'll be cool. I think it's just interesting that we'll have that week off, we come back, and we get a reset.
Yeah, did they announce that it's going to be a reset at that point?
There wasn't an official announcement outside of one of the Young Bucks tweeting out that it was looking like the end of the year there would be a reset, but I guess that is something they would probably need to officially announce before we take it as official gospel. But it would be something I would expect to be announced soon, if nothing else.
I would hope so, because we're getting there, man.
Yeah, they just need to explain some things like that a little bit better. There was a full explanation from Cody Rhodes on social media that we would not see Chris Jericho defend his title against Jungle Boy. That will instead be a non-title matchup. That is great news. For me, I think that Jungle Boy's going to win. I'm going to be pulling for him to win. Big way to elevate him. Big way to build up some type of like angle with that, and like extend his situation with Jericho, which is going to be nothing but beneficial for him. He can literally win that match and then get a title match on the Cruise episode, lose that match, and just continue it so many different ways. So, and it's a great thing for him too.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome because there's no way Jungle Boy doesn't come out of this with a rub because Jericho's not going to, bury the dude. It's not in his nature to do
Well,
that.
and the best thing about it is if they do the reset on the year when the year changes
On the first, yeah.
then that means that will be the last episode. So he will have gotten his losing streak out of the way,
You're right.
win right here, and can just go on a run for the beginning of 2020 and just look like a star. It's a good way to close out his losing streak. It's actually I complained a lot about how he was booked, but it's a good way to salvage all of that. So I essentially wouldn't be upset about it. I do really, really, really want to see him win here, though. I think that it's a great opportunity. Jericho's not undefeated or anything, so it's not even that big of a deal. It's just a win.
I wouldn't even mind if it was. I want it to be a win, but I wouldn't mind if it was a draw either, just because you still have grounds to kind of say, okay, well, it was a draw, so we're getting another match.
So I have a question. Would you rather it be a draw, or would you rather he win by Moxley interference?
I'd rather it be a draw if that was the case.
What if, he gets a good run? He gets to show himself really well, is about to win, lose, or doesn't win. Jericho's beating down on him, Moxley interferes, and he gets a win. It's still not, so you'd still rather see a draw?
Yeah, I just, because I think Moxley would take away from his win. I feel like you kill the rub that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think that it's something we could see happen. I don't necessarily think it's a definite, but I think that's a way they could book a Jungle Boy win. I think that's more of a traditional wrestling way, and they might not go that way. But they have been pretty hesitant to pull the trigger on some of these younger guys. While they have given them good showings, they haven't really gone that extra mile to give them a big win over anybody yet. Darby with Cody, and then Moxley, Janela with Kenny. And I'm not saying any of these guys should have won, but they clearly have not taken the initiative to pull the trigger on any of them. Jungle Boy is the guy you pull the trigger on.
Yeah, absolutely he is. He's one of your best prospects that you have in the AEW roster. When you look at young, up-and-coming guys and a blue chipper guy, Jungle Boy stands out for sure.
Yeah, and he's been a standout from almost the beginning of his tenure with the company. So it just makes all the sense in the world to really push him. And it's like I said, it's a smart time and a good way to do that.
Yep. It's the perfect time to kick off 2020 by pushing this guy, or just really, God, if it's not him, Darby, but anybody who's just young and ready to, have that, kind of take the world by storm. And just, I don't want to say oh, they're going to hotshot Jungle Boy and he's going to win the title, but I just mean, you got to start putting some of these young guys that you've been putting on TV so much into the main event scene, or just positioning them for that option or opportunity.
Yeah, and if nothing else, I would like to see him get the chance to maybe not him, but well, they already have him on the card, but maybe just use that card for the 18th to be a card for all of these guys that you have been working so hard to push. Get a Darby match on there, get MJF versus somebody on there, get Hangman on there. Sammy G on there, all of these younger dudes. It doesn't necessarily. They don't even have to face the Kennys or any of these guys. They can all be entangled together in some way. But use that last episode of the year as a good showing for all of these younger guys, and then again on the New Year's episode, sort of establish all of them in a different way. And I wonder, if we're gonna get that sort of New Japan reset, that post WrestleMania reset, that you kind of see after the January 4th Tokyo Dome show or right after WrestleMania. If they're talking about doing a full reset of the rankings, you would feel like that would be the time to do it. I think the only problem is, and why I think they might not reset now, is you kind of want to reset off of a big pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said that. It just makes more sense, but it also makes perfect sense to do it at the start of the new year.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see. I think that if we don't get an announcement on that this week, I don't think it will happen, but they easily could also wait till the 18th to say we're going to reset after next week. But I think it would be a lot smarter to let it be known now, and then next week they can continue to push it. This is the last week of records. Everyone is trying to do so much.
I agree. Because it also it would be really funny because you kind of have Kenny Omega rising the rankings, which we'll get to later, but he's going to get knocked back down to square one.
Yeah, so that's an interesting aspect of all of it. And I think, again, the only issue of it is not coming off of a pay-per-view, but that's not the end of the world. You can be different where you kind of reset your company literally at the year change rather than off of your biggest pay-per-view of the year. You don't have to do it that way.
Yeah, and it's a good way to start setting that trend.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to note the next couple weeks, really important. The last bit of news we have is the audio issues that were experienced at the beginning or throughout last week's Dynamite kind of got explained during this week's episode of Being the Elite. Nick Jackson just explained that there were some satellites in Atlanta that were out, and it was a big issue for the whole TNT network. I wasn't tuned into TNT all night, so I have no idea if this is true or not. I assume it is. It makes sense. It makes sense, and then the only thing I like about it is that they just sort of directly sat there, referenced the problem, and we're done with it. It wasn't a joke this time. It wasn't like their voices were, their lips were moving and different words were coming out or something as a joke on Being the Elite. It was straight up like, damn, that sucked. We had a good match, and this just ruined it.
Yeah. It was a good, real moment, and I like that they're just using Being the Elite not only to joke around, but to also, because in that same episode, they had a joke about WWE, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but just to see them really talking to the audience and just addressing the problems that they have, it was nice, and it felt, I don't know, it made me more forgiving of the problem too.
Well, and the it's not a sprint, it's a marathon joke was actually pretty well done, and that's the difference.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree with you. I'm just giving credit to that segment, I guess. If we might as well just talk about all of Being the Elite or any of the important parts, and I'd say that part was decently important. Them obviously just referencing the rating situation, all of that, and it's funny to see them obviously paying attention and react in real time. Something you might not have gotten so much in the Monday Night Wars, or your reaction in real time would have been on television. Instead of using television time for this, they're using their social media time for it. So that's a better way to do it, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I would rather them doing it, because if they did it on social media, I would actually think of it like, oh, that's kind of, I don't know, sad or something. But I don't want to say pathetic again, but it would be kind of disappointing if they were just talking on social media about how they're winning or losing in the rankings.
Yeah, I think so. This is a good way to sort of reference it in real time without, again, using television time or something like that. This is a good way to do it on their on their YouTube channel and things like that. So, was there anything else on this week's episode of Being the Elite worth noting?
The Dark Order stuff was kind of interesting.
They continue to push that throughout all of their social media. Any clips they put on Twitter, maybe not all of them, but some of them have included little Dark Order blips and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see how they're pushing it. I wonder if we'll get a couple new members or something in that sort of officially become more of a stable rather than a duo.
They kind of teased that the jobbers are going to be the guys, because Michael Nakazawa was tempted and Brandon Cutler was tempted, and then somebody took a piece of the flyer, and it's kind of interesting that it's so it's for the downcast jobbers who are feeling like garbage, because that goes with the cult thing that they've been playing off of the week and feeding off of them.
Yeah, and they kind of have enough lower name or jobber level people that they could pull into that fold. The Brandon Cutlers, Nakazawas, or even the Beaver Boys. We're going to talk about the card for Dark here in a minute. Those are two wrestlers who have been established as a tag team that are more so of a jobber unit that could be brought into the fold of the Dark Order, who might not be well known to a lot of fans, but could be brought into something that could make them more well known. So I think it's an interesting thing to see. It would be weird to see Cutler under one of those masks, or even Nakazawa. It would
definitely be weird.
But they have to have a decent idea planned out for it, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely it's piquing my interest, I should say, because I didn't even consider that, so the videos are going to be about reaching out to these lower level guys who are struggling in AEW, because
even Sunny Days. Remember him?
No.
You don't remember Sunny Days? Wasn't that his name, the guy in the Battle Royal that they offered a contract really early on? He was the video editor.
Oh, you're right.
Dude,
yes, I do.
He was a bigger dude. He's a jobber. He could just, that's how you bring him into the fold, get him some TV time. I mean, he really hasn't, maybe it was just a one-off thing for the Battle Royal, who knows, but he's someone that popped into my mind when you started talking about how this was a jobber, or could be a jobber stable.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. I didn't even, I don't mean jobber stable as in it's a stable of guys who are going to lose all the time, but rather it's a stable of guys who are sick
down
of
on their
losing
luck
all the
and
time.
Yeah. So, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely down with this.
Yep, but then we might as well jump to Dark. We were just talking about the Beaver Boys. They have a match against the Jurassic Express. If you're unfamiliar with the Beaver Boys, that's John Silver and Alex Reynolds. They had a match with Proud and Powerful a couple weeks back, pretty quick, nothing really showcasey for them, but it's worth noting that they are on a couple weeks in a row because it's interesting to see how they're not necessarily doing the usual gimmick of bringing someone in just from the local area. Well, they might be from the local area, but just randoms. They're kind of consistently bringing in the same people.
Yeah, I like that they're not just I don't know. I like that they're just having these guys on standby rather than, I don't know, just throwing them away or using them 1 week and then just moving on. It's interesting that we're keeping enhancement talent around because it kind of shows more of a loyalty to people you're picking out, and it makes those people matter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cool in that sense. That match is cool. Looking at this card again, I feel like this week just feels like a filler week, and I think we referenced that when we went over this card on the last episode. But again, the next match we have is Peter Avalon versus Scorpio Sky versus Jimmy Havoc. This one's a little bit more interesting than the Beaver Boys one. I just don't have a lot of faith in the Beaver Boys winning, but at least in this one you could see Jimmy Havoc pick up a win. You could see Scorpio sort of continue on a singles run there. I would like to see Scorpio and Kaz do a little bit more in tag teams, as they are the tag team champions, but
I know, right?
Really done anything. They did defend them against Jericho and Sammy G, but after that it's been a push to make Scorpio a singles guy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wish they would just, even if it was against the Beaver Boys, I don't care. I just want to see these guys in tag matches being the best tag team that AEW has to offer, you know?
Yeah, instead it feels like we're seeing a lot more of the Bucks and Proud and Powerful get more of that showcase of being the two tag teams, which isn't a bad thing. But Sky isn't someone I want to see in singles action so much when he is the tag team champion. This would have been, I would almost have rather seen Sky and Kaz versus Havoc and Avalon in a tag team match, just to, again, showcase the tag team champions.
I absolutely agree. And you can put that, I guess you don't want to do that because you have Kenny Omega in a match and you want to put him in the main event, but I don't know. I feel like the champion should take precedent over even Kenny Omega, even though Kenny Omega is the bigger name.
Yeah, that's fair, and it would have been a good point to make in this situation or any situation. But in the main event, as you stated, we have Kenny Omega taking on Kip Sabian. Looks like a pretty easy way to victory for Omega. Kip hasn't gotten a lot of chance to showcase as a singles guy who's going to pick up a victory over someone like Omega. I don't feel like Omega would ever really lose much on Dark because a win over Omega is so important.
But yeah, I wouldn't expect that he would take a loss to Kip Sabian on Dark, but I'm not going to pretend. He's definitely going to win. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
I'd bet everything on that one, dude.
Yeah, but it's still cool because you can still get... Kenny Omega's been doing this thing where he's been wrestling these guys on Dark, and he's been giving them rubs. It's not just he's stomping them and beating them. He's having 15, 20-minute matches with these guys.
Yeah, and it has in some cases translated to another match or two on Dynamite. So it's a good showcase for Kip, and I think this is his chance to really this is going to be kind of it, where I'm gonna say he's a guy that I think can be like Darby, Sammy, Joey, those guys who can be like a real future in AEW, or might just be one of those guys that they picked up along the way, because he has had some moments that I was impressed with, but he hasn't really done too much, you know?
I absolutely agree. They haven't really been trying to push him that hard. It's just been on those early shows, and it was cool to see him, get those Road to video packages and whatnot. But since then, we really haven't seen much of him at all. And I don't know. I totally agree with you. If you can't have a great match with Kenny Omega, then you're not going to be one of the future stars of this company.
Yeah, so I do think that there's a good chance we'll probably see a really good match, a really good main event. I will always have trouble getting too into matches that I don't really feel like the competitor has a big chance to win. But that's me literally digging too deep into the booking of it. In any case, it should be like anyone could win, and who knows, maybe there'll be a moment or two where I'll bite. So that's what you're in for, especially with Omega matches on Dark. You just want to be able to believe that the guy could potentially pick up a shocker.
Mm-hmm. I would love that, but I don't know if I would love it on Dark. If they did that and they didn't do it on TV, I would be mad, actually.
If nothing, it would give people a reason to want to tune into Dark. I think that bringing Omega back to Dark is one of the biggest compliments I could give at this point, because I'm so happy about it. Like, Omega or anyone important needs to continue to be showcased on Dark every week. It should be Omega, Hangman, like some of these, even Darby maybe you could put in that main spot, but you need to be slotting really important people in the main slots on these shows to make it feel like more than just a superstars or main event type show.
I absolutely agree. Just one solid match every week is all I really need.
Yep, exactly. So that'll be a good one. I'm excited for that, Omega versus Kip. Let's go ahead and go over this week's Dynamite card, what we have announced thus far. Only 3 matches thus far announced. We already went over Big Swole versus Emi Sakura. We also have Cody and QT Marshall versus The Butcher and The Blade with the Bunny. This is a debut match for The Butcher and The Blade. So this again is going to be like Kip. I know I haven't ever seen these guys as a unit ever, but this is their only chance. It's put up or shut up. I know QT Marshall is one of your opponents, so that sucks, but you got Cody in there. You better look good or I don't give a shit about you.
I think they'll look good. I'm actually not worried about them looking bad in this because I don't know. I'm just expecting it to be a normal tag match, and Cody's going to be in there, and QT Marshall is going to be in there. So I don't expect that it's going to be one of these tag matches where it's more of a PWG style. So I don't think there's a big way to screw it up,
Well, and I think what'll be interesting, or the story that they could tell, is they want, or Cody at least on social media was like, I'm not tagging in QT. He's my boy. I'm not going to put him through that. So I think it could be interesting if they just beat the hell out of Cody where he has to tag in QT. QT then gets the hell beaten out of him or something like that. I'm with you, though. I think that The Butcher and The Blade, I think that's why I'm saying that they have to put up or shut up, because I have a lot of faith that just based on their look, I think, and the way that they were given a big entrance and everything, that they could be a big deal. Which it's going to be hard to do at this point to establish any new teams in that division is going to be hard to do right now, because that's sort of where they have done a good job at establishing. They have a good variety of people that you can elevate and make look good and make like you have the Best Friends, you have Jurassic Express, and these are just the lower card guys. You have the Dark Order, like these are literally your lower part of the division, and all of them could be somewhat believable as tag team champions at this point just because of their popularity or how they've been pushed.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to position The Butcher and The Blade as tag team champions anytime soon, but who knows? Maybe. I think they have a really good look, and they're not off to a great footing because of how they debuted and how awkward it was. But aside from that, I don't know. I feel like this is a really good chance for them to redeem themselves and establish themselves as a really solid team. So like you said, it is put up or shut up. Not even because of the match, but just because of how they were introduced. That you can't fail twice.
Yeah, and if nothing else, they got the better cycle of the treatment than the Dark Order, who got a really bad debut and then had to have match after match after match after that, and then got vignettes. These guys got a really bad debut, followed by a pretty decent vignette the following week.
Yep.
It's definitely worth noting that it's getting confusing with them sort of being like a dark cult, the Dark Order being a dark cult, and then the Nightmare
Brandon
Collective being a dark cult. That's something a lot of people have noticed, and I wonder what they're going to do to reference that. You can't ignore it. They've noticed a lot of things that people have complained about. I wonder if I think if anything, it'll be The Butcher and The Blade who sort of change to, or maybe not even change, but show more what they're about than being that dark clique type thing.
I would hope so, because they kind of have a look where they can just be two gritty guys who beat people up, and that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully a good showing for these two, and they could be a very good addition to the tag team division.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of the tag team division, let's go ahead and talk about the tag team division top 5 for the week of December 6, 2019. These came out this Friday. We won't actually have to talk about them for too long because literally nothing changed, but it's worth talking about because last week we had so much to bitch about this division.
Yeah.
If you were with us last week, you definitely heard us complain for a solid 10 minutes about how they, maybe not even complain, but just question a lot of things. So if nonetheless, it's exciting to see we don't have to say much, and because nothing essentially happened in the tag team division last week. They did have that 6-man victory for the Young Bucks, so they could have tried something screwy there. Putting them at number 1 over Santana and Ortiz. I appreciate them not.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like you said, I don't have a lot to add to this, but I was worried that we were going to see the Young Bucks at number 1, and we're not. That's fine.
And with them at 1 and 2 respectively, going into a no disqualification match, I believe, this week. Oh, yeah. We totally skipped over that match. We might as well talk about it now. Going into that match this week.
We kind of talked about it on earlier, but we can go over it again.
It's worth talking about that. I think it should be like established as a number 1 contenders match for a title match the following week. On the 18th, you close out the year with a really good match with SCU versus either of these two. And you have a lot more on the line for this match being the main event match. This is an important match for Dynamite. This is a pay-per-view match being redone on TV and a good opportunity for either team, really. I think I would rather see Proud and Powerful continue their winning ways over the Young Bucks, maybe be a team that has their number. I don't think the Young Bucks needed... They sort of done a lot of 50-50 for themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would love it if Santana and Ortiz won this. I wouldn't mind it if the Young Bucks won it at this point, but it's just not what I want to see. Because the Young Bucks, I don't know, we've seen it so much and we've gotten it so much, and the Young Bucks have been positioned as the top team so much that it was really refreshing how well they introduced Santana and Ortiz and how well they've gotten over, you know?
Yeah, and I think the reason, like the Young Bucks are the one, they're out of the 4, when it was the Young Bucks, Cody, and Omega, and they all came in, we were worried about this nepotism happening where these guys are always going to win. Hangman obviously didn't get that treatment. Omega has lost plenty enough that people have basically been pissed off about it. Cody's situation has been fine. They've booked him somehow so perfectly, despite him winning a fair amount. A couple of them have been over jobbers. A couple of them have made people look really good. So Cody's been booked perfectly fine. These guys, it's not even to say that they've been booked bad, but you can see the feel of the 50-50 booking with them, where if at this point they kind of gave Santana and Ortiz that rub, you then have it off of everyone. Essentially, you know, and then you can just do whatever you want going forward, and they can do whatever they want anyway, but you kind of get past that any point of anyone being able to say, well, the Bucks have never really booked themselves to look bad.
Yeah, and they really haven't, and I get it. I understand the logic that they all have this mindset that the Young Bucks are the best team in wrestling right now, and I wouldn't even disagree with that.
I would.
But I've always loved the Young Bucks, so I'm happy to be aboard that train. But even so, like you said, there's just this feeling of nepotism that is going to hurt the way it gets presented.
And it hasn't been. They haven't done a bad job. It's just they have points almost with matches like these. And I probably would say we probably said it going into the first match with these two that we just didn't want to see it. And I'm just the same way. Keep showing us that you're willing to elevate other people. That's all I want. Because for some reason that'll make me like you guys even more. And I know it's weird, and it might not work for the whole fan base, so you want to be careful about how much you're putting people over. This is a team you can put over on TV, and it's okay.
Yeah, this is, if it was any other team, honestly, right now, even if it was the Lucha Brothers, I would say I think I want the Young Bucks to win, because I don't know, we've kind of had the Lucha Brothers already, and that's the only other team I can think of to really challenge them. The Best Friends, I wouldn't necessarily want to see the Best Friends in SCU
No,
right
yeah,
now, because
definitely
that
not.
seems weird. The Private Party would be interesting, but
They would probably be another team I would want to see beat the Young Bucks, but I think
that's fair.
the biggest reason it would be so frustrating to me, because as you bring up the Lucha Brothers, it reminded me, like, that was such a 50-50 essentially booking storyline, where they were always winning in the US and losing in AAA, and just going back and forth, and this would just be that all over again, where I feel like neither the Young Bucks or the Lucha Brothers came out of that feud with either one having much steam.
Yeah.
So if this was the same type of ending to that, it would end with little to no steam.
Yeah, it didn't give anybody any like steam or heat or anything. It was just blah, and it really didn't help anybody, like you said. So I don't know, to put Santana and Ortiz solidly over for the second time, that would look
they don't
really,
even have
really
to.
cool.
It doesn't even have to be that clean, because it's a street fight, so you could easily get Hager, Sammy G, the whole half of the roster involved, like will inevitably happen based upon the match stipulation anyway. But still, interesting.
It's super interesting, and I'm looking forward to this one because, like you've said a lot, I don't like matches where I know who's going to win. I have no idea who's going to win.
Yeah, this is a match where I get to have the fun of being a fan and rooting for a team. That's all that happens here, and that's what I like. And that's the fun part about it is that the Young Bucks have been giving, in a sense, if that's how you want to put it, where they've let other people go over. So I can believe that they could win, or that Santana and Ortiz could win. So.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely, I'm rooting for them, like you said, so I think it's definitely possible that we see that.
Yes, exactly. Worth taking over the tag team division discussion this week for that, because like I said, the tag team division didn't really change, and it'll essentially not change next week. It'll kind of hinge on the result of this match, I would assume.
Yeah, I think so.
And then going right to the women's division, at number 1, we still have Hikaru Shida. At number 2, we have Nyla Rose, who was last week number 4, and this one will be the one that I complain about the loudest. We have Emi Sakura in at number 3, falling from number 2. Britt Baker in at number 4, falling from number 3. And Chris Statlander in at number 5, her debut on the rankings last week. Obviously not ranked. Last week we instead had B. Priestley at number 5. So I would like to see B versus Chris.
Oh, yeah, I would too. And like you said, I have to complain about it. Nyla Rose jumping from number 4 to number 2.
Following a suspension.
Yeah, and she only beat who? Leva Bates?
Yes.
Person who's not won ever?
Nope, never won. Probably lost to Nyla twice. And she's won once because she teamed with Nyla. So I guess that counts.
But
my biggest issue is just you suspend her and then rank her at number 2, and it's just silly.
It is. I'm glad that Hikaru Shida is staying where she is, even though she lost her.
Yes, I agree 100% that there is no reason to have moved Hikaru, and I think you actually, I lost your sound there for a minute. What AJ was just saying as I ran into that technical difficulty was that Nyla Rose being at number 2 would have been a problem for Hikaru Shida dropping, because then Hikaru would have dropped to number 2.
Yeah.
And Nyla would have been number 1, which would have been even more ridiculous. So it makes sense that Hikaru stays, because you would have almost had the question of who do you slide in at number 1. You couldn't really put Emi there because Emi just lost last week. You don't want to put Nyla there. I think Nyla could have been better served at number 3, and Emi at number 2 still. I don't know.
Because I know you're right. Because you could just give Nyla another win this week, and then it makes sense that she's number 2. And it's not like you have to rush to put these two together, because it's not like they're.
Or when they announced her suspension, they could have easily been like, and she's removed from the rankings for the remainder. Like, because you can if you want to justify Cody's involvement in the singles rankings, that's fine. You could still justify your suspension if you want, but like, if you're suspending someone, just pull them off your rankings. Like for that, give it a more impact for why the suspension means anything, because it means nothing. You just pulled her off of TV and she's gonna sit at number 2. Like,
it's not like she was fined $10,000, which she could have done, and that would make way more sense. She was suspended,
for the remainder of the year. She will not be on TV for the next 2 weeks.
So it's not like we're getting Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose.
Nope, it's just gonna be. And who did she attacked Shauna, and who was it after the match? It was just
Bryce Remsburg.
Yeah, so I don't get it. I don't get you're building to Shauna and Nyla Rose at the first of the year.
I hope not.
I mean, she's suspended until then, so you could have had the match at any other point, I feel like, so who knows?
Maybe she'll show up anyways and then get fined or whatever, but as far as I know, that's not happening, so I'm just going to call this stupid.
I'm always going to complain if someone's on the rankings and they have no opportunity to challenge for the title in the near future. That's my biggest issue. My other biggest issue is where the hell is Rio? Our women's champion has literally not been on TV for so long that I'm wondering if there is some issue. Like,
I hope not, because this is, out of everybody on this roster who's a new face, I think they've gotten Rio over the best.
And you would have to assume that any like work visa things they would have to settle, they would have settled before they made her the first women's champion.
One would assume or hope.
But dude, you haven't shown her in probably 2, maybe 3, even 4 weeks.
Not even on Dark.
Yes, so a random women's match on Dark would have been great for her. Her last match was probably a tag team match on Dark.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest complaint, is we just have not seen the main woman in the division in a while. She needs to be seen this week, or next week's episode will definitely be titled "Where in the World is Rio?" The same way we had to ask "Where in the world is Adam Page?" This will be it now, because we're starting to wonder.
And they've just been putting Hikaru Shida on every week, and no Rio, just gone.
Yeah, it's almost like they just, and I could understand you don't want to build to a championship match, so you keep her off, and when she does come back, it'll almost be like a big pop, because people will be like, holy shit, we get to see Rio. So it's an interesting way of booking, at the very least.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't like it.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be that we see our champions every week, but again, I feel like it could literally be 4 weeks. I haven't looked into it, but it could be.
I think it has been. And on note, it's not like Chris Jericho is absent. He's there every single week. He's always doing something, and I always love that Jericho isn't just a champion who's, dicking off and just
they easily could have had Rio come out and make the save in that Nyla beatdown and been the one put through the table. And
yep.
Like Shauna could have been there already, and then Rio comes out to be the champion of the division and be like, what the fuck is going on in my division? And then gets thrown through a table too, and then you have a build towards the title.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's just this. So I just want to see Rio.
Yeah, I do too. I miss her.
And then wrapping up the divisions, we have the men's division, which also didn't see a ton of change. We had Moxley still at number 1. Omega moves up to 2 from 3. Pac slides down to 3 from 2. Cody Rhodes in at number 4 still. MJF in at number 5 still. So really nothing changing here.
Yeah, my biggest complaint is that Cody Rhodes is ranked. Yeah,
and I don't, but again, as I almost say every time I complain about someone being ranked, I don't know who I would slot in his position.
Yeah.
At least in the women's division, if we pulled Nyla out, it would be so much cooler, because you could have Chris at 4 and B at 5, and B could be like, what the hell? I've been in so many more matches. Why is she ranked above me? And then you lead to a match between rankings that makes some sense and makes rankings feel a little bit more important and worth watching. In this
Cody,
case,
you don't really.
Yeah, with Cody, you don't get anything. He won a match against a jobber, so he stays at 4, I guess. MJF hasn't really done anything, so he just stays at 5 after his match. I mean,
it's not bad. I mean, it's not like I'm offended by the rankings or anything, or I'm confused. I get it.
Yeah, like I said, who would we slot in that position if we took Cody out? You got any ideas?
Don't. Nope, not a one. So I guess it's all gravy.
Yeah, so the men's division looks good, at least with us continuing to build the Moxley versus Jericho whenever they plan to have that showdown. But I think it'll be interesting if we don't get any Pac versus Omega interaction this week. I think it's inevitable at this point that they've been hinting to that story. If you've been paying attention, that it's just going to continue, and it's a good news story for Omega. If he's not working with Moxley or Jericho, Pac is a very suitable opponent.
Pac is so amazing, and he's just so damn good, dude. I cannot get over how talented this man is, and so to put him with Kenny Omega, I can't ask for a better opponent.
Yeah, exactly. So, the men's division rankings aren't bad. I think the Cody thing will always sit weird with me. It would be something where you've pushed these rankings as important. If someone like Darby was sitting there for weeks, even though he hasn't done a lot, if he was sitting there, it gives him more recognition every week. You did it with Allie for like a month in the women's division, and no one gave a shit. So the fact that we have to have Cody in here, it's whatever. And it's just going to be something we will, like, are we going to have to deal with this forever in AEW? He's always going to pop back up into the rankings sometimes, or always be ranked but never be in the title. Like, did they not think about this?
I mean, they clearly thought about it because they referenced it.
They definitely did think about it, but it's like, shit, man.
It's dumb. It's the stupidest thing I think they do, and I wish they would stop it.
And I wish that their only answer wasn't just like deal with it. Like, this happens in college sports, deal with it. And I'm like, I don't watch college sports, so I can't tell you if you're lying to me or not.
And I don't care. It doesn't even matter because it's not relevant. This guy's never challenging for the title again, according to you. And now you're saying, well, we're still going to rank him for no particular reason except we don't have any other guys that will look as good, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and I think the ranking thing's weird in general because if we're going to reset at the end of the year, like, shouldn't every number one contender be looking at a title shot at that reset point? And again, this is all super speculation. They haven't announced us reset, but it was definitely said by one of the executive vice presidents that they were aiming for the end of the year for a reset. And it wouldn't be the worst time to do it. They don't necessarily have a ton of win-loss under their belt right now, so it might not be the best time to do it either. It might be better served waiting until February.
I don't know. I think I would like it if it was, because it would be awkward this time, but that is going to be the only time it's going to be awkward because going forward after January 1st, and like next year, it'll feel so good to be like, it's been a full year, the new year changed, and the reset is happening. So it would be awkward this first year, but it's not going to be that bad.
Yeah, so I guess it's just something we'll have to pay attention to over the next week or so if we get an official announcement on that. But interesting to note just all the rankings and how they were at least not so forceful on making drastic changes this week. This week they kind of just left everything to sensible decisions outside of Nyla Rose's ridiculous ranking.
That's the only thing I can really bitch about is Nyla Rose, because otherwise it's pretty, I don't know, plain.
Yeah, and if she wasn't suspended, I think I would still maybe complain about her being pushed up to second. Maybe third.
That's way too high.
Maybe third, but it was just, if it had been like she started at 5, like every week she was moving up a slot for the last 4 weeks, it would be fine, even if it was jobbers. But you can't just beat someone who's totally unranked, not important at all, and jump up like 3 slots or 2 slots.
I will say I admittedly forgot that she was suspended, and that's not why I was upset. I was upset because I thought she would just jump from number 4 to number 2 for beating Leva Bates.
Yeah, and I think that part is it's hard sell.
Yep.
Hard sell to explain to people why Nyla Rose's win over her is more important than some of the things that maybe Britt Baker or Emi Sakura have done over the last however many months in AEW. But, whatever.
Yeah, I guess.
I just want to see her, like they drastically pushed her up. If something happens in the women's division this week, something should definitely happen where she falls out. Like if Emmy wins against Big Swole, even though Big Swole's not ranked, I don't see why Emmy shouldn't be ranked number 2. And I guess the point of the Nyla Rose thing is it was a dominant victory, and so you have to look at the types of wins, AJ. and it was a 2-minute match, and so that's
so
what Cody would tell you if you tweeted at him and said, "Why is Nyla Rose number 2 from number 4, even though she beat someone who only has 1 win?" He would say,
I didn't even consider that. That's so dumb.
Quality of wins plays into rankings. Ha. Because he always ends his tweets when he's triggered with ha.
Oh, I didn't know that, and I like him less a little bit.
Cody's still my guy, but that one cracks me.
Oh, yeah,
whenever
same,
he
but...
responds to someone kind of being bitter about AEW, and he just ends it with ha.
Oh, that's not good. It's dumb because if it was anybody else, if it was like Emi Sakura or if it was Britt Baker or whoever, and she beat them in 2 minutes, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's Leva Bates.
Meh, quality of win. Hey, that's probably why LAX has always been so high, because they beat that one team in like 2 minutes. So, and if that's the case, it makes sense. Like that, I'm okay with that because we're setting a precedent. That means if someone like Wardlow gets his first match against someone and kills them in 2 minutes and randomly becomes number 3, it gives you that opportunity to do that. It gives you a way to elevate someone quick without having to make them have 20 wins. It's just make them have a quick win.
I feel like who you face should, like, if you're facing somebody from the bottom of the barrel who doesn't have any, like, because if you were to rank Leva Bates, she would definitely be the last woman on the rankings, right? And so
I don't even think that the rankings or the quality of your opponent means as much as it should, because if that would mean something, then Chris would be like 3 or 4. Or 2, 3, or 4, and she's 5 off of a big win over the number 1 contender. So I think maybe in the formula or whatever, however they determine their rankings, that your opponent means a little bit less than however you win, because your opponent is kind of just, especially some of these jobbers are more unknown. Like Leva Bates, we obviously know about, but
you're right. But it's still awkward to me.
Yeah, but it's fair, because say someone debuts that we've never seen and they're supposed to be really good or like a prominent figure, then you know what I mean? For your average fan, they might not know that a jobber is a jobber.
Yeah. Okay, so, I get it. Sure.
I got you sold on it. Nyla Rose, number 2, she deserves it, except for the fact that she's suspended. But hey, according to JR, we just want our wrestling to be too serious.
Did he say that?
No, that's just how I interpreted his reaction to my bitching. But hey, nonetheless, it's a decent week for AEW. Last week was really good, a good Dynamite at least, and the ratings showcased that. We got some interesting news leading into this week's Dynamite. Maybe not the best card, but I hope that there will be 1 or 2 more matches announced tomorrow that'll really give people a reason to want to tune in. I'm obviously going to tune in, but a match that I'm obviously excited for is the Bucks versus Proud and Powerful, so they have a decent enough card there alone. Yeah.
It's going to be a fine show. I expect it to be maybe a little bit fillerish, but nothing bad or something I'm going to go, oh, I hated this show. I'm thinking it's going to be fine. We're going to get to see the Butcher and the Blade debut, which is going to be cool. We're going to get to see Big Swole on TV, which I'm excited about. And like you said, that street fight's going to be great.
We should really see a Jungle Boy singles match here.
We really need to, don't
Jungle Boy versus Sammy G would be really good.
I thought that.
Have Jericho even coin it as like, and if like Sammy wanted a match with me so bad, more than anyone ever, like, that Sammy came up to me and he told me what he wanted for Christmas. He said all he ever wanted for Christmas was a match with Chris Jericho. And I said I gave that away to this idiot Jungle Boy last week. Like, that would be cool.
I love that.
And then you have those two wrestle on Dynamite. You have a reason for it. You have Jungle Boy win. You make a match with Jericho seem so important. Like,
I love that. Yeah, I didn't even consider that. But it would be a match where it's like, obviously, we know who would win, so I wouldn't like that side of it. But other than that, I think it would be kind of fun.
Yeah, or at least we would definitely want Jungle Boy to win.
I would hope so, God.
But yeah, I just think that there should be something for Jungle Boy this week. It's important for him to really be established. I mean, and maybe they don't. Maybe they want to keep that run of, like I said, down on his luck, 0-8. Goes into a match with Jericho, wins, and then it turns his whole career around type thing. So
could be. I'm definitely seeing that as a possibility. But also, they could even give him a tag match on Dark, which kind of upsets me that Marco and Luchasaurus are the ones facing the Beaver Boys. But whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. A very good point. Dark should be a place for him, but like he should have been showcased there for a while. But again, if the story is for him to be down on his luck and then it turns all around off of this win, then I'm down with it and I appreciate it. So
I'm into it.
It'll be an interesting episode of Dynamite just for the build of that. I want to see more of that. I know we have Jericho and Moxley as the most important thing in the company or the big feud, but let's give this the week build that it deserves at least.
Yeah. I mean, it's significant. It matters. It's going to be Jericho. He's the champion. He's le champion.
Le champion.
He should have the biggest match on the show.
Agreed, 100% there with you, man. But that really wraps everything up that we have for this week. AJ, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I can't think of anything.
All right, go ahead and plug your social media.
You can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy.
And as always, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. Check us out on Instagram at All Elite Everything. You can check out our website, alleliteeverything.com. You can also check out our Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod. And you can follow me on social media at All Elite Andy. Just another big shout out and thank you to all of our listeners who have continued to check us out throughout all of AEW, who are there for Wednesday night's main event, who are there for the live episodes and everything else like that. We definitely appreciate you. And until next time, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. See ya.
Bye.